So I realized I just can't quite let this whole custom reamer, custom die thing go yet. I just did 3 episodes about picking why custom rifles exist, why you should pick a custom rifle if you want to shoot long range, why you cannot buy accuracy, you have to build it, and that specs are everything. And I realized I used the 300 Hellbringer as my, what would I call it? My reference point. I used it to illustrate a bunch of points about building a custom gun. And I realized I might have given the impression that you need to do some sort of a goofy wildcat or some sort of an off-the-wall. No, nothing could be further from the truth. So, in that light, I decided to talk a little bit about my personal journey with the 300 WSM. I started with 300 WSM somewhere around, I don't know, I'm going to guess 2000, 2003, somewhere in there. By the time 2005 or so rolled around, I was starting to get some ideas. And I was doing my old thing of herring off down rabbit trails. And so sometime around 05, 06, I started setting up my first WSM reamer. And I still got, because I work this way, I've still got all the paperwork from those orders. This is my first. Now, get this, that by this time, I realized that this all comes down to the fact that the key to accuracy, the main key to accuracy, there's other things I feel very strongly about. A good stock, a good bedding job, a timed barrel, linearity, there's a lot of things, but the single biggest thing to make your platform shoot is what all the build in the world can go sideways if you don't know how to make cases for it. And then once you've made cases, if you don't know how to maintain them. So, I realized back prior to 2000 that the only way this can work is with custom dies. I have ordered custom dies from everybody on this planet who makes custom dies. I've tried to make them myself. I have made them myself. I've modified them. I have 2 heat treating furnaces. I have bought die blanks from all the people who will sell me die blanks. I've used 12L14 lead loy. That's an old, there was a guy back in the day that made them, and he feels that lead loy shrinks just a little bit when you harden it. I have tried everything that I know of to do. Long story short, though, to skip around, once I realized I need a custom die, I figured, well, I'm going to go the opposite of what I've been talking about in the last few videos. I don't want anything exotic or weird. I want to choose. At that time, around 2000, the WSM was being called a big PPC. Short and fat is where it's at. People had all kinds of fallacies that they were subscribing to. But essentially in people's heads, because the 300 WSM had similar dimensions, is similar dimensionally, is similar in profile to something like a 6BR. It's really not, but okay, it's short, it's fat, got a big shoulder. So I chose to start down a road with the 300 WSM. First thing I did, I sent this paper off to David Kiff. This is the one that I've told you about, from the Redding die. Make reamer from Redding die. This was going to be a 330, well it is, I still have the reamer. 333 neck, shortened so that I just trim off the mung on the end of it. The whole thing is set up with a compound angle for 187 grain BIBs. This was the first reamer I had set up. I had used other people's reamers prior to this. I've got a whole list of reamers here that I had. Here's one dated 01, drawing by DK note here from PTG. We also have this and this. This one is a 345 neck. That's more of a Sammy spec, enormous big. I didn't ever use that, but he sent it to me. Then we went to something been modified by a GD. This is again 2001, 336 neck. 558 at the back. You'll notice that all of these are 558 at the back. A 300 WSM altered, again with a 345 neck. And I go on Thursday, written, notes back and forth, back and forth. I mean, this is up to 2003. And we're still at a 335. We've got the back at 554. Then I'm sending stuff to, sorry I haven't been able to let you read this, but more notes to Kiev. 07, this is one of my first ones, double taper, compound taper. This ended up being what I ordered, and it's got a length 2.050, which is a weird, you know, the main length here is 200, but I changed that in one of my notes here to, hey Dave, let's add 90 thou to that. So, I go through here. I don't want to bore you with details forever, but I send these things in with my writing on them. I get blanks from him, and I write Dave a big note, and then this is for this right here is for the die maker. I prefer this, I prefer that. I don't want to get into that. Custom dies are another whole thing. But suffice it to say that that was the first, and I've got a little note here that shows 07 was my first, the one that we just talked about there. But what I'm doing here, understand now, I'm not using some exotic anything or another. I'm trying to fix some problems. Number one problem I'm worried about here, this is going to be a match reamer, at this point, is the whole fitment to the die scenario. So this is the one where I ordered the die, sent the die to, had them ship it right straight to Kif. He built the reamer right off of that die, hit all the numbers, nailed everything. Everything was perfect, fits the die perfectly. I also did it in a 331 neck, so that I had to neck turn. I did it in a short neck, so that I had to turn that muck off the end of the neck. And I ordered it out, and it worked until about the third firing, and then because of that small die, I've done this on 3 different cartridges. My first 6x47, I believe, which was not called a 6x47 at that point. It was long before the brass was even available. I did the same thing with that, and to this day, even though I burned the back of that chamber out bigger, to this day, cases tend to get stuck in the sizing die. Which brings me to something you got to ask yourself again. This is think with me. When you got cases getting stuck in your sizing die, you just got to ask yourself, why? Oh, it's a lack of lube, everybody says. Try a different lube. Well, that's BS. For the most part, when a case gets stuck in your sizing die, it's because your stinking die is so tight that it's bearing down on the solid brass at the base of the case. This brass here at the base swells out, and it's not resizable. It's a solid slug of brass. You hit that with a hammer and it's going to squat. You can't squeeze it back. So when that die goes down, starts hanging up down here, and you start sticking cases, fatten the die, fatten the chamber, that'll never happen. You'll never stick a case in a fat chamber. So my first try, utter bollocks, total failure. Just as the brass got good, it started hanging up in the die, started clicking, and it just terrifyingly bad. So I fired this thing for a few years, fast forward up to, oh man, I'm up here 2010. These are the 3 that I ordered in 13. I kind of skipped a bunch in here. But in 2013 alone, I first of all did what I called my number 2 with 50 thousandths of free bore and a 1 degree 30 throat. And if we show you, doesn't matter which of these we use, this one happens to be a number 2. And I wrote in, so that you can read it, I wrote in 562 up here. And a reamer print when it comes, this has been my go-to. 562 is the size. Just let you see. This is 3 generations away, so I'm kind of, this has got a bunch of goofy stuff on it that, you'll notice that this is no longer marked 2 with the numeral 2. This is 2 with 2 slashes. This is actually the 7th reamer probably that I've used, the 3rd generation of this particular design of reamer. Fat Butt 562. This is marked at a 338 neck, but it actually does a 337. It's got a super custom taper, again for a specific bullet. I don't want to get into that. It's got a specific... So, in the 300 WSM, I've got dates 3.6 of 13, 5.10 of 13, 6.4 of 13. This middle one was a resizer. I was playing with this huge, endless problem of sizing dies. So I ordered a resizing die, which is negative 0.005. That's a half a thou at the shoulders, a thou and a half at the base. Now, I'm not passing any of this stuff on to you because I think you should do it or try it. Or I'm not pushing, I'm not selling, I'm not anything. I'm not purporting to anyone that this is the way anyone should do it. This is some of the stuff I've done. This folder right here has got 7 or 8 different 300 WSM reamers and reamer prints in it. Every one of them was designed to address a problem that is found in, let's say, factory stuff or SAMI stuff. Now understand that SAMI means something, people. You hear this, it's S-A-M-I. And it's a standardizing body that standardizes arms and munitions. That means that they put it on paper and they give it, that pencil is trash. They go out and they test and they do a bunch of stuff and they kind of validate a cartridge. So, minimum SAMI spec, maximum SAMI spec, then you got all sorts of Creedmoor specs, and you got all sorts of Camp Perry specs, and you got all sorts of military grade specs, and you got all sorts of custom and all sorts of BR spec and all sorts of... You got people coming up with all these specs, and generally they're erring to the small side. For no reason, in my opinion. So, where I'm going is, the reason you build a custom gun is not to get yourself something exotic. It's to get yourself something that works. I sized the neck. I actually have 20 boxes of 300 WSM factory here of every brand. I got everything that's available out there, loaded factory rounds. And I get $800 worth of 300 WSM loaded in the box somebody could take a deer hunting, just so that I can measure the necks, so that I can order my reamer, so that you can take factory cases and size the neck in such a way somewhere around 337, 338, which is tight enough that the mung on the end of the neck will hang up. You got to be careful when you're, but if you turn the mung off with your thumbnail, all of a sudden it'll slide in and you'll get an almost a fitted neck. Somewhere between 337 and 339, maybe 340, but not 345. 345 is so bloody big, the necks pop out and you squinch them back down and a bunch of things happen. This is one of the things that I haven't talked about too much when it comes to sizing. In the last episode I talked about how cases are eccentric. They're thin on one side and thick on the other side. What that means is, when you're thin on one side and thick on the other side, when this pressure blows in here, this side blows out, the skinny side blows out. It does a whole lot of bad things, but it goes back out. Now, when you put this thing back in the sizing die later and squinch it back down, this same section collapses back on itself. So you end up working this section of brass until you get something called a case split, a longitudinal split in the case. That's what drives it. How do you eliminate it? By getting better die fit. Make sure your chamber is not more than about a thou or two bigger than your die. Boom! It springs back. Now the die barely touches it, barely touches it. You can size this weak side, you can size this. So it comes back to die fit. No matter what, I need to convince you that the answer, the absolute answer to accuracy is getting your rounds to fit in your chamber nicely. That's key to everything. I know of situations that gained national prominence. A famous gun builder, a very good gun builder, got suckered into building a $3,000 custom and putting it into a competition on the national stage against Remington, Savage, Tikka, a bunch of factory offerings. Well, the Savage guys came out, reset their headspace to the factory ammo that the company provided, and proceeded to win. The poor guy that built this custom gun couldn't do that. He put a SAMI chamber in this $3,000, $4,000, not really, maybe giving credence to how big a deal that was going to be. You can't make a gun shoot with poorly fitted cases. It can't be done. They'll shoot okay. They'll throw the fly. They might shoot 5. They might shoot 7. Then they'll throw it fly. The vibrations are completely inconsistent. If that case does not fit, jammed longitudinally for its initial fire form so that it pops out square and nice and straight, and then maintained with a fitted sizing die, just put her in the press and it goes boom, goes back in the gun, boom, goes back in the gun, boom. And all of the neck, if the neck is too big and it blows up and you keep crimping it back, again, it goes back to this, people. There's a bunch of things going on, but here's what it is. You got the thin side of the brass here. This is the side that works. Got these little arrows here. It's working. Let's just call this the neck. Blow the neck out, work it down. Couple things happen. Number one, it no longer stays in the center of the body of the case even, because this side, as it gets works and works and works, it also work hardens. As it work hardens, you end up moving around until all of a sudden the sizing effect occurs on this side or on this side of the work hardening. And in the meantime, this over here hasn't even really done anything yet. It just kind of hangs there. But when it blew out the first time from, let's stick with the 300 WSM, the factory neck in the chamber is somewhere around 337, 338. The loaded round, let's say it measures 335. You blow it out to 345. That's a standard SAMI spec reamer. You blow it out, you squeeze it back. Picture what that brass does. It's like if you are taking a piece of silly putty and stretching it. I showed this in an earlier, you can't predict where it's going to go. But I can tell you this, if you stretch and go back and stretch and go back and stretch and go back, and that silly putty is something that work hardens like brass does, that point of stretch is going to move all around. It's impossible. The neck itself moves and moves and moves in relation to the body of the case behind it. The body of the case itself is moving. So you get one chance to blow that case out and get it to fit your chamber. One bang before it starts to work harden. So your initial fire form is heinously important. Then your maintenance. So let me be really, really clear. This is just a very short overview to make sure that you understand. When I say you need a custom gun and a custom chamber and a custom resizing die, that does not mean you need some funky, off-the-wall, Allen Waugh special goofball hellbringer piece of crap cartridge. That's not where I'm going. I'm using that just to illustrate how I'm dealing with some of the issues that are present in the paradigm. But let's go to 300W. 300WSM is like the best all-around cartridge in the world. My whole life I've been saying the 30-06 is all that. The 30-06 does everything. You can get by, you can shoot an elephant with it. Not a perfect, but dude, Caramo Joe Bell shot him with a 7mm. It's hundreds of them. So let's back up and realize it can shoot elk adequately set up right. 30-06 is a great round. It's the universal. It's so boring that people won't build it because it has no panache anymore. Now, the 300WSM is just basically an 06 short action. I can take good 06 brass in a good setup and essentially match the 300WSM for velocity and pressure. The 300WSM will beat it a little bit, but the stinking company just about went bankrupt trying to bring it up to Win Mag velocities, because that's how they touted it. That's how they sold the stupid thing, is that this is going to be a short action and match the Win Mag. Well, it can't. The Win Mag's got 30% more powder capacity. So you're never going to catch that up. I remember, it's so hilarious because the WSM line of cartridges, I've seen factory rounds come out with so freaking much pressure that they're popping holes in the primers, they're cratering, they're getting sticky. You're running super hot signs. In factory guns, they push the edges of the envelope. Not saying that they were unsafe. I'm saying that they pushed the edges of the envelope, trying to make this thing perform in the outsized manner that it had been sold as. But that said, it's a great case. It's a great case. But my, or somebody else's, a case design that addresses the problems. My design's got a fatter butt. Takes care of all the problems in the back. Takes care of all the stickiness. It's got a smaller neck. Takes care of all the problems there. It's got a little better taper. Takes care of all the problems with ejection and extract, well, with extraction, not ejection. And more than that, it's set up so that it accepts what needs to be a custom sizing die. But the tapers and the shoulders are set such that a sizing die works perfectly with it, so that you can fire the case over and over and over while it scrupulously fits for great accuracy. It's not about Wildcat, it's about fitment.